keep an eye on that. I'm really excited about this first session. I've had the pleasure of holding some focus groups with some of the young people who have benefited from this work in Thurrock, and it was just amazing to hear about what this work meant to them and the difference that it made in their lives. I mean, the word life-changing was used more times than I can count in the sessions, and it was, yeah, really amazing. So I'm excited to hand over to Wendy and Kirandip to talk more about this work in Thurrock, and I will just start sharing the slide.
Thank you, Saskia. So this is us, Thurrock Brentwood Mind. So I just wanted to run through just some basic housekeeping for the workshop, which will be the same as in the conference. If you can mute your microphones while others are talking, you're welcome to use the chat box. There's a raise your hand function. And I think as well, really important that if you need to take a comfort break, then you do that. It would also be useful if you are going to speak, if you can just say your name each time you begin speaking, in case that's helpful for other members of the audience. Saskia, I can see a small version of the slide. Are you able to make them a bit bigger, please?
Sorry about that. Let me reshare it.
Thank you. Well, I think in the way of introductions, shall I go to you first, Kieran?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Kiran. Well, my full name is Kirandip, but everybody calls me Kiran. I'm the youth facilitator for Thurrock Brentwood Mind, and I run the Youth Positive Pathways project, and I work alongside lovely Wendy here. Nice to be here.
I'm Wendy, I'm the Deputy CEO, so I've been really fortunate to be involved at a strategic level from when we first started thinking about what was needed for young people in our area, and just echoing what we heard in the conference earlier, how important it is to have young people and families around the table at the start, and they really have driven this project and remain involved now. But with that in mind, we thought the best way to demonstrate what we do is to show a short video that was made by the NHS England and Improvement and our young people and families and other professionals, especially our colleagues who we work really closely with at CAMHS. I say CAMHS, in our area it's known as UMS, which is the Emotional Wellbeing Mental Health Service. So it's a statutory service that provides therapy for the young people in our area. So I don't know, Saskia, can you press play?
Yes, sorry, one moment. Just sharing my sound. Are you able to see that?
Yes, that's looking very familiar. And obviously afterwards, if you've got any questions or you want to talk to us about our experience, then we've got time to do that.
Knowing that I was coming to the end of my CAMHS journey, it was quite daunting at first because I didn't think there'd be any other help there.
Thurrock CAMHS services were experiencing a high demand and long waiting times for their services, and we were keen as commissioners to look at ways to help them face that challenge. One of the things we found was that clinicians felt that they were holding on to young people into the service and not discharging them.
My worry as a clinician was, where are young people going to go? You know, they're working with us, you build a relationship, you build a rapport, you put your heart and soul into the job, to be fair. And knowing, however, that there's more need out there, there's more young people that need our services. So you're kind of balancing all of the time, you know, when do you discharge, when's the right time to discharge?
So we wanted to find a way of really supporting young people as they transition from the service and move out into the community. It was very important that we developed a person-centred approach and wanted to offer personal health budgets as part of that offer. We developed a business case that was presented to the Collaborative Commissioning Forum in Essex, which was supported and implemented last year.
Kieran, hello.
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 Hi. This is Paul, I told you about me. I'm the youth facilitator for Positive Pathways. Nice to meet you.
At Thurrock Brentwood Mind, we've employed a youth facilitator to work within the CAMHS team locally. And her role is really to meet with the young people, their parents, carers and the therapists, and to look at what their interests are and what they hope to achieve. So it's really a social prescribing model.
Hi, my name's Kiran. I'm the youth facilitator for Positive Pathways, and I work for Thurrock Mind to help young people transition back into the community through offering them extra support.
There are 4 stages to the process. The first stage is a CAMHS worker and a Mind Youth facilitator have a pre-discharge meeting with the young person and family.
So why don't you tell me about a few things, some interests that you might have that I could maybe, just to get to know you, so I can see where I can help you.
The second stage is a personalised care and support plan session with a Mind worker takes place with the young person and family.
When we first met Kieran, it was after one of Lily's counselling sessions. She got introduced to us to help Lily do things like on the other sides of counselling, and she's given me lots and lots of information for the help that's also out there for me.
What kind of things have helped you so far then? Because we've done quite a few things together, haven't we?
Like counselling, like just talking to all different people, like just
the music school as well.
Yeah,
Like Shed and Taste.
just helped me boost my confidence. Like that's the main thing.
Third stage, the Mind You facilitator sees what's available in the community to meet the needs of the care plan and to support the young person.
As part of young people's personalised care plan, I introduced them to other organisations in Thurrock, such as Thurrock Mind, Prince's Trust, Inspire Youth, Open Door, Peer Mentoring, and Temple Springs, the music school. And I walked them down to the organisation to introduce them to the services.
Stage 4 is the personal health budget, where it is used for young person's needs where there isn't an available community service already identified.
And now you've got your own little circle of friends and, like-minded. Joe shared his interest in music and how he wasn't able to access that in college. So I applied for a personal health budget, and so he managed to get 12 paid sessions for one-to-one tutoring for keyboard lessons.
Oh, it's boosted my confidence immensely. I can now actually be confident in going up the stages.
Joe's never, ever picked a career. He didn't know what he wanted to do. But music, I know that he really enjoys and he loves to do it. And hopefully by this, he can do that.
Ellie, when I first met with her, she shared about the lack of the social groups that she struggled with. So part of my work was making groups, and it really helped her meet new friends.
She put me places like Temple Springs, where I got offered a job, and it's given me the opportunity to grow more in myself that I wouldn't have had otherwise.
We're really proud of the work that's being carried out here from our CAMHS services and Mind, working in partnership with wider stakeholders across Thurrock. It's been really exciting to see their relationship grow and flourish, with new ideas coming out every time we meet.
The best thing about the whole project is just opening up. It's almost like we've had French windows put into the clinic, and suddenly we can see the outside community and we can see all the resources that are available there.
40 young people have been through the system so far, only 6 of which have actually required a personal health budget to support their personalised plan. This really reflects the amount of resource and opportunities there are out there in the community for young people in Thurrock.
I know now that I'm very confident when I discharge somebody, there's something else out there for them. There's another kind of plan of care.
I really enjoy my work, supporting young people, seeing them flourish. It's almost as if I'm walking alongside them on their journey.
Like she's an angel in disguise for us.
Luckily I had Kieran and the Positive Pathways worker there to give me more guidance and support that I needed.
Well, hopefully that gives you an idea of what the project is about. And I think it really, just to give you a little bit of the background, it was back in 2017 that as an organisation at Thurrock Brentwood Mind, we predominantly provided services to adults, so 18 up, but more and more young people were approaching us. And rather than assume that what was needed was another counselling service locally, because we knew there's also already good provision, we thought, well, let's talk to young people and families and professionals and find out where the gaps are. And so we carried out a service design project. So we spoke to, in a really short amount of time, about 76 young people. There were 31 professionals, parents, other people that worked out in the community, just to really understand what the issues were, what the challenges were, what's already available to people, and what the young people were saying that they needed locally and what would have helped them. And we didn't just carry out surveys, we just picked up the phone, we arranged workshops, we did activities together, and everyone really got involved. And it, even from that offset, we realised there were so many people locally that cared about our young people that were experiencing mental health difficulties and wanted to make a change. So as part of that process, some of those interviews were with our colleagues from CAMHS, and I'm so appreciative that they spoke so candidly, and they said for them they are confident in the work that they do with young people, but they had high caseloads, and one of the reasons that they didn't have much capacity is because they were reluctant to let the young people go after they'd done the therapeutic work, because they were concerned that they were going to decline and come back round the system perhaps when they were in crisis. And so, having identified that gap and spoken to young people and parents, we looked at how could we come alongside as a voluntary sector organisation who's got knowledge about what's available in the community to support people alongside the statutory NHS services. And initially we looked at that transition age group of 16 to 18-year-olds where we know people can fall through the gap. Not everyone needs to go to adult mental health services. So we really focused on anyone that was being discharged that was within that age group. As you can see, met with Kieran and had a conversation about what matters to them. So it was a very general wellbeing conversation, and we looked at what do they need to help them to stay well and move on in life based on what they want and what's important to them. We've been really fortunate that the local commissioners within the CCG have been on board and have been so flexible and so responsive to what the young people and the families are saying that they needed. And part of that, I think, is because we're in a unitary, so it's quite small, and those lines of communication are much easier. I know that can be more difficult if you're working across a bigger patch where there are many CCGs and district councils. I mean, we're fortunate because our CCG and our local authority are actually based in the same building. So there's a lot of integration and joined up care. So I think from there, I don't know if Kieran, you perhaps could give some examples of some of the things we've applied for personal health budgets for, because I think, as it says in the video, we found that not everyone needs a personal health budget. We can link them into community assets that are available that are already funded or being provided by other voluntary sector organisations. But when we have needed a budget, then Kieran has worked with the young person to look at what they need and what matters to them, and then referred it up the line to the panel that sits within the CCG for authority.
Yeah. Thank you, Wendy. Hi, I'm Kieran. Yeah, so we've had quite a few, various kind of needs. So I've had some young people that have needed kind of peer mentoring. So when they've got, like, let's say ASD or kind of special needs or learning difficulties, they really struggle with social anxiety. So I've kind of met with the family and applied for a personal health budget to I get like 6 sessions of like peer mentoring with Open Door, which is another local organization that offers that support. And then recently we've got some young people that have helped us set up a group during COVID. So we meet every 2 weeks on Zoom, and one of the young people, young ladies in the group have wanting to become a youth champion to change the world. She wants to change, sort of share her story with the world and kind of, change how adults view mental health. So I've kind of helped them with becoming youth champions. So part of that was to apply for a provisional license because she didn't have any photo evidence. So we've had to apply for a personal health budget to help her get a provisional license to get a DBS done as a youth champion, to be able to go into schools and present. So, there's various things. And then there's another young man now recently who's got special needs, and he's really interested in music. So I've taken him for a taster session recently to Temple Springs Music School, and we've applied for a personal health budget for him to have like one-to-one drumming sessions. So it's very interesting work, very interesting, with what comes out. Every young person is unique. They've created a group. They've named the group themselves. They've called it a Be Unique group. We're always asking them what they need, and then we kind of deliver. So it's really the young people's voice is really, really important. They really appreciate that.
I think a real example of that, and certainly when I think of that group of young people, the majority of young people that have been referred through to the project would also have been known under SEND. So they have additional needs in, as well as that experiencing mental health difficulties. And it was when they said we'd set up the project really to work one-to-one with Kieran, short term, to signpost them, link them in with local support, and then step back. And what came out of that project was actually what we need to do is socialise with other people that have got an understanding of what we've been through. You can refer us to all these other services, but we need friends that get what we're going through, and hence where the group grew online. And I always remember when Kieran came to me and said, well, Wendy, I just want to say this. So there was perhaps 8 or 10 young people in the group at the time, in just as COVID, I think lockdown 1 was ending about September time. And they decided that although a lot of them experienced social anxiety and had even had their cameras switched off for quite a few of the sessions, that it was time that they wanted to meet. And they was allowed to meet in the park. And it was, as an organisation, I'm thinking it's safer if they all stay where they are in their rooms on Zoom, because that would be easier. But listening to what the young people wanted, we made it happen. We're very fortunate that within our charitable organisation, we can go through and get the authority we need, put in place the risk assessments. And Kieran and our other youth coach who works in the Brentwood and Basildon area met with the young people so that we was adhering to numbers that we could have, all socially distanced. They had a picnic in the park. We invited the local park engagement officers, who then got involved with what they might like to do physically, what activities they could put on for them. And I know Kieran's also talented and held a yoga session, a mindful yoga session in the park. So I think the project is definitely driven by what the young people want and the young people need. And I often say that my role is trying to get through the red tape that might go with that. So I'm frantically ahead of them, feel like I'm cutting through the red tape so that they can achieve what they want. Oh, you've put in there, the CCG is very open to initiative ways of meeting the young people's needs. They are, and I think they did at the initial the planning stage, it was really important to get the right stakeholders around the table. And that included CCG and also their finance department. They really had to understand what we needed in order to be able to be responsive. I mean, there's been occasions when Kieran's put in for a personal health budget on a Friday afternoon for a course that was starting for a young person on a Monday, and they've been able to turn it around quickly because they have got a budget that's already been put aside, and we've already worked through the processes and the procedures and the sign-off. So are the PHBs funded from the CCG solely or through joint funding? Currently, there's the CCG have found some money. Originally that was from transformation funding that they've set aside, but we also have really close links with the local authority. So if it's something that's needed for longer than short term and is more of a social care budget, we can speak to the local authority, or they can joint fund if that's appropriate. How do you assure the quality of the services are bought with the PHBs? Again, there's a strict process that we have to go through, depending on what the PHBs are for. So I know Kieran mentioned Open Road, who's also a provider locally that has existing relationships with the CCG. We need to evaluate. I think somebody had put in there about how do we evaluate. We've got forms that were actually designed alongside the young people that are really simple to use, and it's around the outcomes that the young people want to achieve. So we look at the 5 ways of well-being and work out most things people want to achieve fall within that. If not, we've got extra lines on the form that people can use and look at what difference is it going to make, what impact is it going to have, and then we go back and we ask people, and we have to report all of that up to the CCG. And as you'll see from the video, the young people are very vocal about what's working and also what's not working. I know, Saskia, you might want to talk at the end, perhaps a little bit about the work that we've been involved with,
Sure.
With the National Children's Bureau.
Great, that would be good.
Or do you want to say something now? Does that? I don't want to put you on the spot, but it just seems really relevant around how we're looking at outcomes and what difference the service is making, and not necessarily doing it in a traditional way of fill out this form. I know that can be helpful, but
Sure, yeah,
engage young people that way.
Yeah, I can say a bit if that's useful. So it's part of a wider piece of work looking at how best to support young people through forms of personalised care, and thinking particularly about young people that have experienced social deprivation or other types of health inequalities. So we're working with a few areas across the country, including Thurrock, and we've been holding focus groups. So last week we held a focus group with the Be Unique group, and also we held a focus group with some of the parents as well, and just to kind of find out their experiences of the care they'd received through this Positive Pathways scheme, but also previously through UMS and more clinical work, and hearing kind of what the aspects of that care that they really valued are, and kind of things that they would want to change, and also talking about some barriers to accessing support in the first place. And so it was really fascinating to hear the difference that they felt that sort of a personalised approach made to them, and kind of was such a different experience for them than sort of more formal, like boundaried clinical work with a really clear sort of referral process. And they spoke a lot about that sort of cliff edge of support when they reached 18, and the fact that this form of support was much more flexible, and there wasn't going to be a day where suddenly where it went away. It was a much more sort of ongoing and gradual form of support.
And I think, Saskia, I think that's where we are really fortunate, because as I started by saying, we were predominantly an adult service. So when people reach 18 within our service, we have actually access to so much more for them. So some of our young people, and I'm not necessarily saying they've gone into therapeutic services, although we do have counselling available, they've gone into a lot of volunteering, they've trained to become peer mentors, and they're now supporting other young people who are just sort of 18 and above, working in a befriending capacity. I know Kieran mentioned that they wanted to be youth champions, so we've set up volunteer youth champion positions and work alongside the local schools so they can go in and speak to the assemblies. And then what's really progressed from there is, I'm so excited, and this has come from the young people really pushing us for what they want. They want careers, but how do they get into a career in a mental health service? And we've secured only one position so far, but from the Kickstart apprenticeship programme, which gives us a young person's opportunity for 6 months, 25 hours a week. And so we've created, again, alongside our youth champions and the hashtag I Will partnership, created job descriptions. So we're going to have our first paid apprentice in place, hopefully by the 1st of April. So that's all going through the process now. So, and already my role now is looking at, well, what will the progression be after the end of the 6 months? Where else in the system can young people be heard? And so we're looking at positions within our local adult recovery college. So it's what started as a small seed just seems to be growing and growing, and but it's being pushed by the young people and their voice and the direction to go in. So we are really fortunate that the CCG locally are responsive, but as a charity we also have access to funding and opportunities that the statutory services don't have. So we've, for example, the hashtag I Will group that I mentioned have funded us to be able to set up our volunteer youth champion programme, because that's an extension of the CCG funding for the personalised care and personal health budgets. We've had things up, Merrill's donated a lot of shoes to National Mind, so we're able to get people new trainers. So it really is about thinking outside the box and not trying to make the young person fit the service, but actually for the service to develop around what the young people need. And I am not saying that everything that people ask for they get. Kieran's very skilled at managing expectations, but sometimes they can't have it yet. But we maybe then find an opportunity in the future where we can expand in that way. But that's part of developing into adults, recognising you don't just ask for something and you get it. There's processes we need to go through, but we keep that communication up so people know what those processes are.
Yeah. I've seen a couple of really interesting questions in the chat. So one that's come through saying, thinking about what you've learned so far, if you started again, is there anything you would have done differently?
Perhaps I'm thinking about 2 projects, because we've also got a project that runs in our Basildon and Brentwood, which supports young people that have been absent from school for more than 60 days due to their mental health. And that works across education, the CCG and ourselves. So we managed to recruit. It was initially, a lot of these projects are pilots, and I think that can make it really hard to recruit to the positions, because you're looking for somebody who's skilled and talented. For example, Kieran is also a trained counsellor, although I know this role is different. You're looking to recruit people into a position, and what you're actually asking them to do is to take a risk as well. Can you come on board just for 6 months to try and get this new project off the ground? I mean, and that initially is often only a few days a week with piloted money. And Kieran is now fortunately full-time, and we're expanding the project in different directions because of a need. But I think, as well as that, one of the sticking points in when we were working in Brentwood, for example, and Basildon, we hadn't anticipated all of the information governance we'd need to go through for our referral form, because it was being passed through 3 systems before it got to us. So we had the youth coach ready and waiting to work, but we couldn't take referrals yet because we were getting stuck in some of that red tape. So I think it's important, alongside looking at what the people need, to get those processes not fixed in stone, but up and running enough that they can keep up with what you're trying to do. So I think that really would be my learning. Try to get money that's secured for at least a year, because then you're more likely to be able to get the right people into the position, and to also look at the information governance and make sure that the systems are there ready to support the work you want to do on the ground. I'm not sure if there's anything else in the chat.
There was another question I don't think you've answered yet, but please tell me if you have, which is, how do you assure the quality of the services that are bought with the personal health budgets?
Okay, So again, we tend to use, we're fortunate in Thurrock because we are quite a small area, so a lot of the services working for children and young people are already known to the local authority or to the CCG. I think what we do is we make sure that we get several quotes for the work. So if that's appropriate, I mean, it's like peer mentoring, for example, we approach different people to see what they can offer, and we look at what their systems are before they are allocated the piece of work, and then we have to follow up and we have to do the reviews to make sure what we hope the young person would achieve, that's the outcome that they needed. So a lot of it is conversations, hands-on, and even we don't try to do everything under the Thurrock and Brentwood Mind umbrella. We're good at what we do, but we recognise it doesn't help when there's limited resources just to duplicate what other people are doing. So it's about going out and having those conversations. So, for example, we approach the local leisure centre to say we've got young people that want to become more physically active. They are a known provider. They are already commissioned locally. So we went to them to say, if we've got young people that want to get interested in sports, what can you offer them? And they then designed a programme for us and gave us a costing, so that then if Kieran comes across anybody, we've already got those partnerships and those relationships built. And I think that's perhaps something that the charity sector can offer if you can get your partners involved from the voluntary and charity sector, because we've already got those established relationships to be able to link into and to pick up the phone and say, I've got a young person, they really need this. What could you provide? How much would that cost? Can you let me know by the end of the day? Because I don't want to keep them waiting. So it is all about communication and building those relationships. And as you say, checking to make sure they've achieved what you wanted to achieve.
Thank you, Wendy. I think we've got about 10 more minutes, so I was just wondering if there are any other questions or reflections.
Saskia, Wendy, I've got a question, and Kieran. I'm just really interested in the range of the needs of the young people. You talked about all of them having sort of mental health issues, but you also talked about some of them having additional needs in SEND. And it would just be useful to get a feel of the range of needs and sorts of young people you feel that you can do best with.
Are you okay to field that, Kieran?
I think what was really interesting is when we set up the group, because we thought, it was just going to be the young people that have kind of had the mental health issues from UMS, and they were going to join the group. But what ended up happening was that's why they called it Be Unique, because we have got a mixture. We've got, we've got ASD, we've got ADHD, we've got OCD, we've got various different kind of needs, got, moderate to mild learning difficulties. We've got all sorts of things, all sorts of needs within the group. But I think what the feedback that has come back is, let's say, for example, the young man with ADHD has said, no employer wants us, people don't want us, but we feel really kind of welcomed in this group because there's no judgment, everybody's very uplifting. And I think that's what the power is, isn't it, of the young people kind of being involved, and they really, really look out for each other. So I think it is really about them being individual, being unique in their own special way, and I think they've been accepted regardless of what they might have, what their need might be. But my role is then to support those young people individually, but as a group, when they come together, they feel accepted. I think that's really powerful.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Kieran.
And I think that's probably apparent if for our learning of providing an adult service, if we were arranging appointments, we would usually pick up the phone or we would send a letter. Well, that's really not the best approach when you're working with young people. And so Kieran will text people if that's more appropriate. So there's been video contact. When we've wanted people's opinions, rather than sending a survey or even a poll that they can do online, it's been about, well, actually, let's get everyone together, and they've decided they want to have a games night, or we've done comic workshops, where they've learnt to draw comic book characters. And as part of those events, we've asked for people's opinions and how they want to move forward, because inviting people to just come to a participation group, a lot of young people, they don't see that as relevant for them. So we've kind of learnt to tag on our evaluations onto other more interesting and enjoyable events. Sometimes young people just write a speech bubble. They fill out a speech bubble with what's important to them. They draw it, and we're going to share. I know you mentioned we haven't got much time, Saskia. Perhaps we could share a poem from one of our young people in Basildon and Brentwood.
Let me put that up now.
Are you okay to read it, Kieran?
I can try. Okay. So you're going to scroll down, yes, Saskia, for me, as I read it, yeah?
Yeah, of course. Sorry, 1 second. Okay. Let me just share it. Are you able to see that?
Yeah. Great. Okay. Outside the window of the coffee shop, walk the people living, not just surviving. I stare in disarray, disgusted, hating myself just for being different. Just sitting there inside the coffee shop, people pass by, perfect, loved, avoiding criticism. Inside the coffee shop, the misfits brood on all the mistakes that they make, begging, pleading to enjoy life again. I breathe the comforting scent one last time and step outside the safe walls of the coffee shop with a sigh of anxiety. I hold my head high, ignoring the shocked stares. I am me. I deserve love. I will stand out. Just you try to stop me.
Thank you, Kieran. And obviously the young person has given their consent for us to share that with you. And they've actually linked up with another young person who's really keen on making videos. So now they want a whole performance. They want to turn an area into a coffee shop, and they're I want to say auditioning, but they're involving other people in it. So hopefully that will create into a video. Could I just go, Saskia, to the collaborative page, the NHS Future Collaborative, because you've all been invited to share and to join the NHS Future Collaborative pages, and they are full of information. They're full of resources, live discussions, and so the things, guidance. So all you'd need to do is to click onto the link and follow through and ask to be invited, and then you've got access to that whole community. So a lot of the things that we've done, we've put on there. The plans that we've designed or the young people have designed are all on there for you to be able to download, and it gives you an idea of what's happening nationally and the progress that they're making. I wanted to share that because it's a real gift, I think, to have instant access to other people that are all trying to move in the same direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Wendy. And we can, if you're okay, we can share the slides with everyone after this session as well, because I know there was lots more on there, and the time has just flown by. But just in the final sort of minute or 2 minutes, I was wondering if there was any kind of final thoughts you wanted to share. Lots of comments coming into the chat about how inspiring and useful the session has been, so thank you both.
I think for me, I would just say, keep it simple, ask the young people, ask the families, and also be willing not to know the answers. As a professional, we can sometimes feel like we know what's best for people. We've done all this training and we've got all this theory and all this experience, but be prepared to get different answers to what you was expecting, and not just to hold on to your ideas tightly. There needs to be flexibility in order to be creative and implement something.
Brilliant. Thank you, Wendy. So yeah, thank you so much for joining, everyone. You should all have a link to a second workshop, which will start at 12:30. So there's a 10-minute kind of comfort break between now and then. But yeah, huge thank you again to Kieran and Wendy for sharing their experiences, and thank you all for your questions. And we can send out the slides and any unanswered questions that there might be after the session. So thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you everybody. Goodbye.